Hey guys, Mike from the WCA for your time for your week 3 update. Had a terrific class. We spent a lot of time talking to these kids. Again, this is our 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock group. So a lot of young kids, all under the rating of 1,000. Spent a lot of time talking to these kids about the word resilience. So, naturally, most of them don't know what that word means at this age, but they do understand it once they get a couple of examples. To be a chess player, it's extremely important to be able to struggle in positions that are not in your favor. So most of the games at this level end with what we call one-move blunders. So, for example, kids that are rated 800, 700 will hang their queen in one move or give up mate in one move. Those are the kinds of mistakes that just cost you the game flat out. What we're trying to get them through, it's really the next hurdle that they're facing is, well, as you get better, the games don't end like that. They end because of much more complicated situations that come up over the board. We use the example of like tug of war, where you're pulling a rope and you're trying to get one team over to the other side, where you're not lost yet, but you can definitely feel the momentum has shifted to the other team. So in chess, it happens a great deal. And these young kids don't necessarily know how to handle that right away, because their first reaction, once they're worse in a position, is to feel a little bit upset, or the same feeling they get when they're being attacked. It's not pleasant at first. So what we do in the class, Bruce and I will first spend a lot of time just talking to them and assuring them that it's normal to feel that way at first, and that with enough practice it actually becomes exciting. That's why we play chess. We want to be challenged, and we don't mind having the worst position sometimes, because that's really how we learn. So once we get them to know that it's okay, the next thing to do is to remind them to look for resources, look for counterplay. When you're worse, don't give up. Keep struggling to find chances in your games. If you go through that enough times, think about that process. One, you're now relieved to know that it's normal to feel uncomfortable in those situations. So eventually, you start feeling more confident and less nervous. So the stress is a good stress. It's time to really think and find resources. The next thing that happens is you then understand, to be successful in chess, it's not about winning the game, because winning the game is obviously not going to happen all the time. The success is if you can honestly say, I had a difficult situation and I did my best. That's really what creates resilience in kids, a natural resilience. It's not made up stuff. This is the kind of skill that can be transferred somewhere else. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a game between Peyton and Adve. Adve was featured in the week 1 game, and the reason we're choosing him again, it just happens that this particular game demonstrated the best of what we were talking about in class. Both of these kids found some amazing resources in the game, so keep an eye on that, and remember the theme of the lecture. It's finding resources in difficult positions. Okay, let's get to the game. We're not going to spend too much time on the opening. So Peyton has the white pieces, Adve has black. So e4, e5, bishop c4. Peyton chooses to develop the bishop before the knight. It's a little less common because it doesn't create a threat. However, it's still a perfectly fine move. Knight f6, attacking the pawn on e4, pawn to d3, and here black chooses the move bishop to c5. And I'll show you one example. Let's say black had played knight c6, which is a perfectly fine move. I'll give you one example of having this bishop out here before moving this knight. Sometimes white can play the move f4, and this is sort of like a king's gambit, like a delayed king's gambit. And the upside to that is that f-pawn is attacking black's center, but there could be a downside, because you are weakening the king's position, especially this diagonal, and you're not developing a piece, although it is a perfectly playable move. Okay, so anyway, back to the game. After d3, Adve chooses bishop to c5, and I'm going to kind of speed through the opening, because as it turns out, after these simple developing moves, the kids get to one of those symmetrical positions that's very common with players at this level. So you'll see the pieces have come out and you have a symmetrical position in front of you. Okay, so what to do? Well, Peyton continues by pinning the knight on f6 with bishop to g5, and here Adve tries to break the pin with h6. Natural idea. And one common move in this position that kids think will always work out in their favor is to take the knight. The queen will take back, and then hit the queen with the move knight d5. And it isn't a nice aggressive move, but it's not as strong as it first appears. You are attacking the c-pawn and the queen, so that would give you you know, a little bit of play, it seems. But after the queen retreats back to d8, white, well, to continue, maybe they would play c3, for example, and try to push in the center. But white eventually is going to have their centralized knight challenged with a move like knight e7. And after that move, black doesn't really have too many problems. They have a couple of bishops, and we've talked in the past the value of the two bishops can be useful, especially if this game ever opens up. And black is really not facing anything so terrible here. So that little trick of taking on f6 here, as I'm showing you, is not as strong as it appears. So after the bishop gets attacked, Peyton decides to keep it on the board and plays the move bishop h4. And here Adve makes a move that Rusa calls, she uses the word shablon, and that's from the Russian language. And what shablon basically means is a move that looks good but doesn't necessarily serve a purpose. So what he plays here is bishop to d7. Bishop d7 gets the bishop off the back rank, and that is thought to be very good by young up-and-coming players because eventually it will help connect these two rooks that I'm showing you here. So for example, once this queen moves at some point, the rooks will be connected. Again, that is not something to follow blindly. That's just a good rule of thumb that if your rooks are connected, all of your minor pieces are in the game. But in this position, is there a better square for that bishop? Well, it could easily come all the way up the diagonal and possibly pin this knight. Or let's take a look at the move bishop e6, which is more challenging to white because you're attacking the bishop on c4. And we call that challenging your opponent's pieces. So let me go back for a minute here and show you what I mean. This bishop on c4 is pointing directly into black's camp. This is a strong piece. So one way to develop your pieces is not just to bring them out, but to bring them out and possibly challenge your opponent's stronger pieces. He may have avoided this because he was worried about his pawn structure, because white could take that bishop. You take back with your f-pawn, and especially the younger kids, they worry sometimes about moving pawns in front of their king, because remember, this pawn here just came from f7, and you'll see that the light squares around the black king are a little weak. But overall, this trade is pretty good for black. And the reason is, I'll give you a couple of highlights. The rook on f8 is just opened up, number one, so you're putting some pressure against the white king. This rook has gotten a lot stronger now. And if you look at the three highlighted pawns in the middle, they're controlling a whole bunch of squares. And with all those squares controlled, it's going to make it very difficult for white's minor pieces to kind of get to the black side of the board. All right, so bishop e6 may have been a little bit stronger, so he plays bishop to d7. Okay, white's turn. White takes advantage of the fact that the bishop was not controlling the center and now jumps into the center with knight to d5. This is going to create some problems for black because there's already a pin here, and now this knight is attacked again. So what to do about that pin? You could try to break it with the move g5, and I'm not going to spend too much time here because you could spend an awful lot of time going through the tactics, but white could seriously consider the sacrifice knight to g5 and giving up the knight, because if you take right back, bishop takes g5, and you'll see that this pin here and this knight pressure here is going to create a lot of problems for black. There are a lot of different variations that could come from this. So this is the kind of assignment we might give our 4 o'clock students to tell them, well, can black play g5? And if they do, can white sacrifice the knight? And then we would expect them to analyze this pretty deeply. At this level, we wouldn't spend that much time here unless we were purposely working on a tactics exercise. Here, the purpose of this video is to teach you the resilience that these kids both showed. So after the knight came in, Adve decided to counterattack with the move bishop to g4, which is going to create some problems for him. Here's what happened. The knight took on f6, check. Another possibility after bishop g4 was to take with the bishop first, taking the piece, forcing black to recapture, and then attacking the bishop here on h3. If it decides to keep the pin by playing bishop h5, you can see that this knight here that I'm circling is still pinned to the queen down here. White can ignore that and lift the queen to d2, attacking this loose pawn up here. And if you try to take this knight and wreck the white pawn structure, white's going to surprise you and not even capture the bishop back. They're going to take on h6 with the queen, and now black is in trouble. They're lost because there is no way to protect this pawn again. And when the knight takes it, it will be check, and then the queen will come here to h7, checkmate. So black is going to have to give up their queen to avoid any of that stuff. So taking with the bishop first is one way to play this position. And Peyton's move is pretty good too. He takes with the knight first, check. It's a more forcing move because it's check. So black takes back, now pawn h3, attacking the bishop, and the bishop retreats to h5. When it's on h5, I want to put a couple of highlights here for you. One, you'll see that Adve's idea is to keep this pin. And you should ask, well, why is the central square d4 highlighted? The reason is all of these kids have been trained that when they see a pin on the board, as you see here by the diagonal highlight, always try to attack the pin piece again. And that would be possible if this knight here on c3 would hop into d4, and that would create some problems for Peyton. So again, both of these players are putting themselves under pressure here. This is a tough position to play because the pieces are getting active. The king's position for black is open, so now it's getting difficult. So what to do? You really have to dig in, and that's what we teach these kids to do. It's like, okay, you have problems in the position. It's getting tense for both sides. Try to ask yourself, what is my opponent trying to do to me? You know, I've succeeded from the white perspective. I've succeeded in opening up the black king. I've made some holes up here, and possibly later I can get in there and attack the king and maybe even checkmate him. But Adve is not giving up. He's creating problems for white as well. So what Peyton does is he plays a really good move here, is he prevents black from accomplishing his goal. And the goal, the immediate goal, would be to attack this knight again. And he plays the move c3. Really good move. It prevents the black knight from coming in. Pawn structure very solid, controlling a lot of squares. These weaknesses up here for black, they're not running away. So if you stop your opponent's counterplay first, you may go attack him later on. Okay, so Adve blunders here. He plays queen to d7. And by playing queen to d7, he's leaving this piece on pre, which means without protection. It's going to be taken in one move. So Peyton takes the pawn, and here I highlighted a couple of things that happen after that capture. One, pay attention to this pin again. The knight is still pinned up here, but the reason I highlighted both the black bishop and the black queen is both of those pieces are loose. They're not protected. This would be a little bit advanced to ask these kids to be aware of all of this stuff going on, but looking at loose pieces is one of the resources that chess players will use when they're in trouble or when they're attacking, and in either case. So, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Adve plays a6. It looks like he's looking to expand here on the queen side, possibly attacking this bishop with a pawn. But that would allow in this position the move knight takes e5. Looks like a blunder, because when you take on e5, this bishop here could take the white queen. But by looking closer, you'll see that the white knight is simultaneously attacking the queen. So there are some problems here. If you take the knight, the queen will take the bishop. If you take the queen, white will take the queen, and black has some problems here. The rook is being attacked by the knight, and this bishop down here on d1 is being attacked. So black is in trouble. So that tactic from Peyton would have given him a really, really big advantage here. Not easy to see that, however. Okay, so instead he plays the move queen to d2, inviting black to wreck the pawn structure here. However, by doing that, you're asking for trouble. Let's see if you remember from earlier what would happen if black decides to wreck that pawn structure. Peyton's just going to ignore that move and play queen h6, and there's going to be a checkmate up here on g7. This would be really, really bad for black. Okay, so after queen d2, Adve protects the pawn with his king, and in this position, white takes over the initiative beautifully. I mean, this is a really, really well-played game. You have to remember, both of these kids are rated under 1,000, so to find these moves, we were really, really pleased with this game. And he kind of strikes with the move knight to g5, check. Problems. What to do with that king? Well, the first question would be, can't we just take the pawn? Well, you can't. If you take the pawn, the queen takes back on g5. That attacks the bishop, which is now left loose, and if it's taken, it will be check, and that king is going to get caught up here in the box. If you try to protect the bishop by moving it, you're going to get mated, and this is a simple mate in 2 with a queen check, or it would be mate in 3 if the bishop blocks, but assuming he's not going to block. King to g8 and queen h8 checkmate. So taking here is not going to work. You're going to get in big trouble as black. So after knight g5 check, what to do with the king? I'm not sure how much time Adve spent on this move, because we're not asking these kids yet to tell us how much time they're spending on their moves. That happens in the 4 o'clock class. But in this position, he actually played a very exciting move. He played the unnatural king g6, walking his king up into the board. The more natural move back here, king out to g8, could get you into a little bit of trouble because of knight takes pawn. And that's going to open up this queen to this line here. So for example, if the rook takes, queen can take on h6, and this rook on f7 is pinned. I'll just give you a little demonstration here. So it can't move. Queen here would be checkmate. The bishop is hanging. Black is in big trouble. So somehow Adve finds his way out of this and plays the move king g6. That is not an easy move to play. Again, why? Because you're walking your king up into the attacking pieces. Terrific game, absolutely terrific. So can he take advantage of this? He can, perhaps by playing the move d4, opening up the center of the board, attacking the black bishop, because remember, the black king is attacking the white bishop. The move he played after king g6 was h4, and he played h4 to protect the knight, so that if the pawn takes again, the queen could swoop in, perhaps, or if the king takes here or something, it just adds protection to the knight, but it's not the kind of move that's going to save him here. It also, and keep in mind, this pawn moving away from the king weakened the king side. So he's pretty much asking Adve to accept the sacrifice, which he does. By taking on f6, you have a king exposed to the middle, but now how to take advantage of that? Well, he plays knight h7 check, which forks the king and the rook. The only problem for Peyton here is Advay now has a choice again where to move his king. He ends up making the wrong choice. Now, Peyton is being rewarded for his aggression, and Advay is actually being rewarded for being resilient. This is an absolutely terrific game, and it's sort of like a ping pong match. The advantage is swaying back and forth, but the reason there's so much excitement in the game is the fact that these kids are kind of playing thematically. This is a sharp opening, a sharp position rather. There are pieces everywhere. The black king is exposed. White is sacrificing material. So these guys are really, really playing fantastic chess. The only problem again here is black has a critical choice to make. The correct move would have been to put the king on g7, and now white almost doesn't have a choice but to take the rook on f8. By doing so, the rook in the corner will come into the game, and here if you look carefully you'll see that white is down a piece. Do they have enough for the piece here? It's two pieces for a rook actually, and I don't think that white has enough. I think black is going to come out of this pretty well. So putting the king on g7 would have been the correct choice. So let's take a look at what happened in the game. Here's the check. He plays king e7. By playing king e7, he gives Peyton a chance to play a move very, very difficult to play, but a move that would give him probably a slight advantage. So white in this position could go from losing to having a slight advantage in one go. Very difficult to find. The move here would be queen takes h6. It's stronger than taking the rook on f8. In the game, Peyton took the rook and black took back with the rook in the corner. And I want you to keep an eye on this guy here for a moment. Let's see how this rook plays in the conclusion of the game. So let's compare that to if the queen had taken this pawn on h6. By doing that, you'll notice the queen and knight are working together in this kind of, I don't know, I like to use 5 by 5 squares. So, you know, if I could make a 5 by 5 square that I'm tracing here for you, queen and knight in a confined area of the board are thought to be the most powerful duo in chess. The reason for that is between the two of them, they can pretty much make every chess move. The queen can move and attack like a pawn, a king, a bishop, and a rook. And if you add the knight's power into that mix, you have an incredibly strong force. Together, in a confined zone, they're very, very powerful together. The rook is also highlighted. Right now, in this particular position, that rook is completely out of play. What could happen from here? Well, the bishop is attacked on h5. If it tries to move, for example, and goes to g6, black gets in big trouble. Queen g5 check. And I'll show you, for example, the power of the queen and knight together. If the king tries to make a run for it and goes to e8, the black queen is lost to knight f6 check. That's a fork. Queen and king are forked. So that's not going to help. If you try to play the move pawn f6, blocking the check and attacking the queen simply takes the bishop, so you get your material back. You'll notice the queen and knight are still in this zone, and the black pieces are really running short of squares. Don't forget about this guy here on c4. So any attack by this rook would invite the queen in for a check. Also, don't forget, if this rook moves, this pawn could be taken by the queen, protected by the knight. This would be a devastating position, totally winning for white. So why did Peyton take the rook? Very simple. At this age, most of these kids, I'm sorry, here we go, here's our check. After the move king e7, most of these players at this age are more material conscious than they are, because taking the rook, as he does in the game here, immediately gets you material. You're getting a rook for a knight. For young players, especially the ones under 1,000, it's much harder to take this pawn and not be rewarded instantly. It takes a move or two down the road to appreciate the power of this queen and knight. But the fact that this stuff is actually showing up in their games is a great sign, terrific sign. So again, really proud of both of these players. So let's go. He takes the rook, and our friend here in the corner takes back. And again, I'm going to ask you to keep your eye on this rook for the rest of the game. Now white takes on h6. The only difference is that queen on h6 is by herself. Compare that to here. Remember those highlighted positions. This rook out of play, queen and knight working together really, really well. This position, the queen is by herself, and the rook that was kind of dormant and quiet in the corner has replaced the rook on f8, and that rook is about to become very active. Okay, so now black, having survived that attack, decides to jump in and attack them themselves. Okay, so here white is in a bit of trouble because the black pieces are starting to come into the game, and don't forget that white is down a little bit of material here. So he tries the move queen h7, and perhaps the idea was to pin this pawn from moving and to get the queen a little closer here, but she's really functioning by herself, and it actually runs into a losing move, which Adve doesn't find. Adve plays the move queen takes h4. Again, the same reason perhaps that Peyton took the rook up here, is that you instantly win a pawn. So you, in one move from here, nobody's guarding the pawn, let's take it. The problem is you don't really want the pawn. In this position, you want the king. So you can pause your video and see if you can find black's winning move. And that winning move would be rook g8. Remember, our friend from the corner is now this sleeping giant that's awake. This is checkmate down here on g2, and it's very difficult to stop black's attack. For example, queen g3 is not going to work, because after that rook came here, you'll notice the black bishop, who's been kind of quiet most of this game, has pinning this pawn. So if you play the move g3, you just get mated. Queen takes g3, you cannot take back because of the pin. King goes to h1, and you can work this out. There's more than one mate in one here, but white is pretty much checkmated, right? Okay, so going back, having missed rook g8, Adve takes the pawn. Believe it or not, white just went from losing the game to saving the game. And again, what's the theme of the video? Being resilient, being able to bounce back, being able to find resource. All of those combined is we ask the kids to just work hard at the board. Are you under pressure from the black pieces? Absolutely, you are. But there are resources here, and I'll show you one. When that queen takes on h4, I'm going to create these kind of cross pins and these diagonals that are going in these funny directions. You'll notice the bishop here is pinned, because if it moves, you're just going to take the black queen. You'll also notice that the queen and bishop don't coordinate against the white king. She's pointing here. The rook is not on g8, so it's not pointing at the king. So these two pieces are really not working against the king. What they are doing is they're getting in the way of each other. This bishop is now pinned. So why is this diagonal here? Well, this diagonal connects to this one. If this white bishop could magically jump over that pawn, this bishop would be attacked twice. There's no way to defend that. The problem is the pawn's in the way. If you put all of these things together, you will find the move d4. And by finding the move d4, you're going to take advantage of this pin, because this bishop is going to come down here to e2. Peyton has the right idea, but he plays the wrong move. And the reason is, again, here's the pin we want to take advantage of. He plays the move b4. It does hit the bishop, but after the bishop moves, if you try d4 now, it doesn't work, because this d pawn is not hitting one of your power pieces. It's hitting a pawn. That would give black time to break that pin, and you're just going to be down material. There's no way to capitalize anymore. So after b4, bishop goes to b6, pawn goes to b5, and white, I give white a lot of credit. He's trying to mix things up here, but it's going to be a little slow. Pawn took, bishop took. Adve moves his knight out of the way. He probably doesn't have to do that. He could just come after the white king, but he decides to move the knight to the side. Peyton's trying to get back in the game with queen f5, but that is going to run into a lot of trouble. The reason it runs into trouble is she's running out of squares. If you can find black's move, that would be terrific. Good luck. Bishop g4, really strong. Take a good look. She's running out of places to go. There aren't many safe squares for that queen. She's trapped. Very cool move. So he tries to kick the black queen with g3. So if you take my queen, I take yours. But again, our friend up here, that bishop, hiding way in the corner. And by the way, this is one of the most common mistakes of players below master level. Even masters run into this. They miss diagonals from a distance. You know, a bishop is a long-range piece, but this bishop is still here, and that pawn is pinned. So after g3, Adve has a simple checkmate. Queen takes g3 check. King goes to h1. And our friend over here, the rook that was initially in the corner, comes to h8, and Peyton resigns here because blocking with the queen will lead to checkmate. Absolutely terrific game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's a long video. If you have the time, you can go over it again, but really, really proud of these kids. Don't forget the theme. Number one, it's okay to feel uncomfortable when you're worse in chess, especially at the beginning, but we promise you that gets better in time. Number two, do your best to find counterplay and resources in your games. That's how you grow as a person and as a chess player, okay? You guys are doing really, really terrific work. We'll see you on Sunday.